Starting off our list at number 10 is Katherine Heigl. We gotta be honest here and say there's probably a few interviews that affected her career, but one back in 2008 pretty much landed her on Hollywood's blacklist. She took the lead in the 2006 movie Knocked Up, and the movie, as well as her performance, was well received. Apparently not by the actress herself though, who opened up about how she felt about the movie later on in 2008. In the January issue of Vanity Fair, she said the movie was, I quote, a little sexist. It paints women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. It exaggerated the characters, and I had a hard time with it some days. Why is this how you're portraying women? This interview alone was enough for people in Hollywood to turn away from wanting to work with her, but it was sealed when she did another interview in 2008 where she dissed the writing in her show Grey's Anatomy. The actress has to figure out a way to either keep her mouth shut or just choose her words wisely.
I'm not a rude person. I'm not an unkind or mean person. I would never go out of my way or consciously try to hurt anyone's feelings or make them feel bad or uncomfortable or not be professional and do my job. I like my job.
And at number 9 is Paula Abdul. Back in January 2007, the American Idol judge did an interview that went viral instantly. Throughout the video, which happened to be filmed, she slurred her words, wobbled, swayed, and spoke a bunch of nonsense, basically. News anchors from Q13 Fox News Live streamed Paula from New York to do a live interview with her, but because of how she was acting, they thought there was some sort of connection issue.
Oh, I don't know if she can hear us right now.
They kept saying there must be a problem and that she can't hear them properly, but that wasn't really the case at all. Even when she did respond to their questions, she was acting like she was highly intoxicated. She was closing her eyes, slurring her words, just acting kind of all manic and weird. Later, she tried to explain, saying that there was a connection error at first, and they had a station from Alabama in her ear along with the Fox News at the same time. But once they fixed it, she blamed the rest of the erratic behavior on just being tired. She said fatigue and exhaustion just added to the whole thing, looking so disoriented. But no alcohol and no drugs. Absolutely no. The interview had a huge effect on her career. 2 years later, she wasn't able to land another contract with American Idol. The world didn't see much of her for years until she snagged a judging role on So You Think You Can Dance. However, her career just hasn't been the same ever since. Sliding into the number 8 spot on our list is 5 Seconds of Summer. Back in 2015, the band managed to alienate both their fans and a lot of fellow artists and celebrities in just one interview, and since then the world hasn't heard much of them since. In December 2015, their interview with Rolling Stone left people really pissed off. Michael Clifford, who admitted during the interview that he was hungover, bashed the American Music Awards, which they performed at the night before. He said the show was compromised and had, I quote, a lot of fake people. He also called out Justin Bieber and said he thinks he hates them, for no apparent reason at all. Luke Hemmings from the band left fans and parents feeling disgusted after saying, when you put 4 young dudes on a tour bus playing theaters then arenas, you're going to have sex with a lot of girls, I guess. We had a good time. The interviewer awkwardly joked back, asking if they slept with multiple girls in one night or at the same time, and he responded with, I feel like I shouldn't say. You can say the possibility of that is high. People were pretty repulsed by their interview, and things just haven't been the same for their stardom since that day. Next up at number 7 is R. Kelly. He did some major damage for his career back in 2008 when he made comments about being with underage girls. But this interview came after he went to trial for being accused of child pornography. Kelly was accused of making a 27-minute sex tape with an underage female, but after going to trial, the jury declared him not guilty on all 14 counts. People were all feeling some type of way about him, some believed him and some didn't. But his interview after the trial didn't help paint a very good self-portrait. During an interview with BET, he was straight up asked, do you like teenage girls? After everything that went on with court, you would think his response would be an immediate no. However, he responded by saying, when you say teenage, how young are we talking? He went on to say that he has some 19-year-old female friends, but none that are technically illegal. After the interview was aired on BET, Kelly's team saw it and demanded that it never be shown again. It was already too late though, the damage had already been done.
This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my
And at number 6 is Miles Teller. The actor had a promising career, especially after his role in Whiplash back in 2014. But it was after an interview in 2015 where his career took a hit and began to stall. In August 2015, he did an interview with Esquire, and he thought it would be appropriate to tell the female writer, and their waitress, that the bar glass was modeled after his private parts. He obviously used a much more vulgar term, but I'm definitely not going to repeat it. He was pretty sassy too, trying to demand the writer to cut his meat for him when their food came. The interview didn't paint the actor in a very positive light and says that things were changed around. After receiving tons of backlash from it, he told Vulture, I quote, "If how that story made me look was how I really was, I'd think I was the biggest douchebag too. I know who I am, and it's not who I was in that story." Since then, he hasn't been able to book movies like he used to and has only about 6 credits to his IMDb in the last 4 years. Some of you might not even heard of any of them. Halfway through the list at number 5 is the Chainsmokers, another time when a band tried a little too hard to be edgy and just came off as super lame instead. Back in 2016, Billboard did a cover story on the band where they said things that people weren't too thrilled about. Andrew Taggart told the magazine, I quote, "We rage every night. My mom's going to hate reading that, but she already knows." But his DJ partner Alex Pal said that they were pros, saying, "But you'll never see us getting carried out of a club. We're way too good at drinking." Both band members continued on with the interview and thought it was appropriate to bring up their groupies, even though they both had live-in girlfriends at the time. Alex said even before Success was number 1. And then Andrew chimed in saying, "Like, why am I trying to make all this money? I wanted to hook up with hotter girls. I had to date a model. We're just frat bro dudes, you know what I mean? Loving ladies and stuff." And drum roll please for the worst part of the entire interview, the boys also revealed the size of their private, saying that they measured from tip to tip. Classy. Here we are at number 4 with Gary Coleman. The actor sadly passed away at just 42 years old, so this is in no way to disrespect him, but to share what happened leading up to his very controversial death. The actor always had medical issues, but often didn't like to speak on them. On May 26, 2010, the actor fell down the stairs while at home with his wife and had to go to the hospital after cracking his head. He was treated, but the next day he went unconscious and landed on life support, where he died on May 28th. People were suspicious as to what actually happened, and rumors began to fly saying that his wife had actually pushed him down the stairs. Now, the only reason that they thought this was because they went to court after she accused him of physically abusing her. The couple was always known for their altercations and even appeared on the show Divorce Court. This is what led to Gary having an interview that impacted his career in a very negative way. One of the female hosts on The Insider asked him if he abuses his wife, and when he wouldn't flat out deny it, she begins to question if it's true or not, and that's basically when he lost it. He ended up saying to her, I quote, "Go F yourself. I don't know you, I don't care about you, your life doesn't matter to me. If you get hit by a bus tonight, I'm not going to care."
There is no abuse that goes on in my house. Now, if people believe that I'm waffling, then they can go do what they need to do.
Did you abuse your wife? Did you abuse her? Did you lay your hand on her?
And you know what? You can go the same place.
Then he storms off the set and tells all of the hosts to go themselves. People were stunned by his anger and reaction, and he wasn't very well received after that. Alright guys, at number 3 is Megan Fox. It is no surprise to anyone anymore that her career started to fizzle away after the Transformers incident when she publicly bashed the director. In 2009, Fox told Wonderland that the director of the film series, Michael Bay, is, I quote, "like Napoleon, and he wants to create this insane, infamous madman reputation. He wants to be like Hitler on his sets, and he is." She went on to call him a nightmare to work with and said that he has no skills at all. As a result, from her interview remarks, she was fired from Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon and was only booking smaller roles and cameos. It wasn't until she later apologized to Bay that she was allowed back in the director's blockbuster movies, which is how she got to start in his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise. However, Bay told GQ it was actually Steven Spielberg who demanded that he hire Fox, and added that she may not have been the most professional actress on set. I thought Michael Bay was someone you don't want to be on bad terms with, but if the real issue is Steven Spielberg, that's even worse. And at number 2 is Charlie Sheen. He has a list of things that all play a factor on why his career came to an end. One of them was his ridiculous and totally inappropriate behavior during his interview with ABC when he confessed to still being on drugs. Actually, when he asked if he still uses drugs, his exact response was, "I am on a drug. It's called Charlie Sheen. It is not available. If you try it once, you will die. Your face will melt off and your children will weep over your exploded body." He went on to talk about sleeping with prostitutes and said that they are the best at what they do and has has no problem admitting that part of his sex life. The entire interview is manic and whack, but no one could ever forget his famous line when asked about how he survived his huge drug binges. He responded with, "I have tiger blood in my veins." Since then, it's been an ongoing joke, along with his career. However, rumor has it that he has sobered up and it's possible he will be making a comeback. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Tara Reid, only because it was so shocking. The sweet blonde shocked the world after showing up drunk to an interview, or so it appeared. Back in August 2018, she did an interview with Today Extra on Australia's Channel 9 to promote her movie The Last Sharknado. But throughout the interview, she was slurring her words, spoke very quietly, and often just trailed off. When you watch it, there's moments when you feel like she might actually fall asleep.
It really makes sense from the first one. It really does it makes a complete circle. And
after the interview, rumors started that she was drinking again, which was a problem from her past. She released a statement afterwards, not giving any kind of reasoning for her weird behavior, but insisted that people have no reason to worry about her health. However, people were still very much worried.
In at number 10, Kanye West. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're a fan of Kanye West, then you will most likely hit that dislike button and comment something like, "What are you talking about? Kanye still has a career." I get that, but bear with me on this one. While he was on the show back in 2016, he went on a rant that not only left Ellen speechless, but also lasted for 6 minutes. He talked about everything as well, from race to his constant tweeting, and much of the interview wasn't even able to air on television because of just how off-brand he was for the demographic of that show. By that I mean that he said a lot of swear words. That was probably one of his more calmer moments, but just 6 months after this interview, Kanye's mental health really started to deteriorate. Dispatch audio from the day that Kanye West was hospitalized for exhaustion reveals that authorities were called to the scene of a psychiatric emergency, which makes what he said in that interview feel a little more dark than inspiring. In at number 9, Wendy Williams. Both Wendy and Ellen host daytime talk shows, so it's natural that there would be sort of a bit of tension between them, I guess, or, sibling rivalry on Netflix. I don't know if that's a thing, but if it is, these guys have it. Both Wendy and Ellen host daytime talk shows, so it's natural that there would be a bit of tension between them. Although Wendy Williams is typically the first to throw some shade Ellen's way and has done so numerous times. One of the more awkward times that she tried to insult Ellen was when she plugged her PETA ad by acknowledging that Ellen was vegan. Then she asked her, "How do you live without bacon?" Which forced Ellen DeGeneres to reply that she thinks pigs are smart, so that means Wendy Williams was talking about PETA in order to shame someone for being vegan. I don't really understand her. Her next Ellen insult was a bit more on the nose, but still a bad joke. When she came on the show, they played a game of heads up, and Williams got to insult Ellen just one more time. Following this, Wendy Williams' reputation definitely took a bit of a hit, but with Ellen's ship now going down, I bet Wendy is quite pleased. In at number 8, Sean Hayes. Right at the top of the episode, Will and Grace star Sean Hayes wasted no time insulting Ellen. In what is now referred to as the Battle of the Gays, Sean repeatedly calls her Helen from the moment that the episode starts, which clearly starts to bother her as it totally botches the opening dialogue for the episode. From there, it just gets worse. He tossed his ring into the mug on the table as a joke because Ellen complained that it hurt her when he tapped her knee. Sean then proceeds to pluck the ring out of his drink and then flick the excess liquids all over Ellen. Ellen then tried to transition the conversation by talking about how long Will and Grace has been on the air, and then Sean then takes another jab at Ellen by saying that it's been running longer than her own show. And sure, it's great that he's been on a long-running show, but that's about all that he's done after this disastrous interview. In at number 7, Blake Shelton. Ellen is notorious for meddling in the relationships of celebrities, and she's always prying for more personal details and desperately trying to convince her guests that they need to get married. I mean, she bought Jennifer Lopez a clock with her and A-Rod kissing on it, and shortly after that pair got married. So when Blake Shelton came on the show, she tried to do the same thing. However, unbeknownst to Ellen, Blake never received the clock at the end of the show. So when he came back on the show and Ellen asked him again if he had plans to marry Gwen Stefani, he just kind of let her have it. And I love that he called her out on using the clock as just a prop to harass her guests to get married. Although his singing career still continues, his relationship ended in divorce due to irreconcilable differences. I wonder if Ellen had a role in that. In at number 6, David Arquette. When David appeared on The Ellen Show alongside comedian Wanda Sykes, they played a very uncomfortable game of Never Have I Ever. At first, David seemed to just be really excited to be there, but as the interview segment went on, fans started to worry about him. Back in 2011, David made a very public announcement that he was checking himself into rehab for alcoholism, so when he came on the show a few years later, people were worried that he had fallen off the wagon again. As he misspoke in the segment, he pleaded with Ellen to cut that part out of the show, for which Ellen just said no. She then joked about how it was meant to be educational, and I don't know if he was drunk for this episode, but not too many big productions have taken a chance on him following this interview. In at number 5, Jennifer Lawrence. Ellen was put in an awkward situation during her interview with Jennifer Lawrence in 2012. What began as Ellen asking Jennifer about her new cat quickly spiraled into trans jokes that Ellen didn't know how to deal with. Lawrence explained that she always imagined cats as being female and dogs as being male. So when she bought her female cat and it began acting like a boy, she renamed it to Chaz Bono. And for those of you who completely missed that jab, Chaz is the transgender son of Cher and the late Sonny Bono. What followed next was just bizarre too. They had a slideshow of the cat going that was just supposed to line up with her story, but that curveball joke really put Ellen in a weird spot, and the audience had to watch her kind of tiptoe around it into a new topic. Now, this didn't exactly end Jennifer's career as an actor, but it certainly gave her a bad reputation in Hollywood. You can consider that a career destroyed. In at number 4, Giada De Laurentiis. The 2017 cooking segment is now a viral disaster for all to watch online. It was pretty much a disaster right from the jump, and having Nicole Kidman on a guest really didn't help. Giada was teaching both Nicole and Ellen how to make some of her favorite celebrity chef recipes. At least that was the intended plan. Instead, Giada made sexual innuendos about rice balls, insinuating that Ellen's never handled anything like that, which even slightly insults Nicole Kidman, who reminds Giada that this is a family show. However, Giada doesn't stop with the insults. From there, she quickly pivoted to insulting Ellen's lack of culinary skills, even saying that her rice balls look like dog food. After those few insults, Ellen basically bailed on the entire segment. She started eating the food on the table and overall just roasting how bad it was, with Nicole Kidman joining in. And that was the last time that we heard about Giada De Laurentiis. In at number 3, Caitlyn Jenner. The conversation began very lighthearted between newly transitioned Caitlyn Jenner and Ellen. She praised Jenner for her work in the transgender movement and her importance in that role, but when she tried to make Caitlyn explain her previous views on gay marriage, things got tense. At least Caitlyn stood up for herself and explained that her opinion has changed over time. I mean, she literally changed her entire identity, and Ellen is still asking if her opinions are the same. Clearly, Jenner's views and opinions have changed slightly, but she noted that because she's a traditionalist, she still can't understand why people don't want gay marriage. I'm not saying she's right, by the way. I'm simply pointing out a moment where a celebrity insulted Ellen and it kind of trashed her career a little bit. In at number 2, Jessica Simpson. Trainwreck is perhaps the best way to sum up this interview between Jessica Simpson and Ellen. Much like when David Arquette was on the show, people also thought that Jessica was drunk. I realized that she hadn't been on the show for 4 years, but it felt like she had never been in a conversation before. She would say something, and then as Ellen was responding, Simpson would stop her, go back on what she said, and then stumble a bit, and then change her answer. It was really weird. Like, you're on Ellen. You're not being grilled by Chris Hansen in your kitchen. She must have been extremely nervous, but following this interview, her career never really saw an uptick that most hoped for after appearing on the show. The Ellen bump, I believe they call it. Last but certainly not least, in our number 1 spot, Ellen DeGeneres. Dakota Johnson's appearance on Ellen will go down in history as a key moment that led to the downfall of Ellen herself. It really opened up everyone's eyes as to how little she cares about her guests or the show itself anymore. If you don't know what happened, the last time that Dakota Johnson was on the show, Ellen reamed her out for not getting a birthday invitation, so when the following birthday rolled around, Dakota made sure to invite Ellen. Although Ellen missed the party and then had the audacity to ask her again why she never received an invite, thus leading to Dakota calling Ellen out in front of everyone for lying. Ellen was busy getting chummy with former US President George Bush during Dakota's birthday, and thus began the slow ending to her career.
Starting off our list at number 10 is Jesse Eisenberg. The actor has always been called socially awkward and has always shown this not so welcoming attitude when it comes to the press. One of his awkward and demeaning interviews went viral back in 2013 when he did an interview with Romina Puga from Univision about his new movie coming out called Now You See Me.
Yeah. I'll tell you the problem with the trick is that the thumbs don't look like an end of a finger.
You just have a fat thumb though.
No, my thumb's fine, thank you, but
Romina had a few notes written on her hands so that she could remember them during the interview, and he had no problem calling her out on them, saying that she can't remember a simple question and also told her that she is a horrible interviewer.
what did you write on your hand?
Nothing.
Well, I saw there was a lot of things. What was it?
A lot of things.
Are they questions?
No.
Are you secretly hiding questions for the interview? You're wondering what it's like to work with Morgan Freeman and you can't remember that?
His exact way of saying it was, he asked her if she knew the comedian Carrot Top. She responded with, yes, horrible. And Jesse said, I quote, well, you are like the Carrot Top of interviewers. The interview awkwardly continued on, where he continued to make comments about the interview being over soon, and also said that if she was trying to find her way in a crowd, he wouldn't actually want to find her and that he'd rather be alone.
Do you know the comedian Carrot Top?
Yes, horrible.
Well, You were like the carrot top of interviewers. Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a good
gonna
thing.
go cry now.
No, don't cry now. Cry after the interview's over.
Well, isn't he just a ray of sunshine? People haven't received his interviews very well, and the majority of them can't get on board with his whole attitude and behavior. In at number 9 is Paris Hilton. This interview was more of a chance for her to have a comeback in her career, which was already destroyed, but she just kind of blew it. After her career started to fade out, we didn't really hear much from her until 2011 when she signed up for an interview with ABC, which was meant to give us a look into her life and what she's up to now. The interview took place at her home, which started out great. We got to see her home, her dogs, and she just seemed to be in good spirits. That was until the reporter, Dan Harris, began to question whether her celebrity status was running out and being taken over by her close friend, Kim Kardashian. He worded it as nicely as possible, but she just couldn't handle the thought of it. He brought up the fact that her show called The World According to Paris had received a low rating and asked if that upsets her. You could clearly tell that it does, but she responds simply by just saying no. She begins to talk to her publicist, who is standing offset, saying that she wants to be done with the interview. She ends up walking off, but her mic was still on, and she told her publicist that she doesn't want any of this footage being used.
Do you ever worry about your moment having passed? You want to wrap up?
When I was curious about one thing going back to...
So, what do you guys think? Do you think she was acting like a diva by giving one-word answers and leaving? Tell me down in the comments. Next up at number 8 is John Mayer. Back in 2010, he did an interview with Playboy where he sparked a heated debate among his fans, and people lost a lot of respect for him. His relationships with stars like Jessica Simpson have all been documented in the tabloids, but he dished on their relationship in a very strange and disrespectful way. When asked about his ex, Jessica, he started to speak about their sex life, saying that she was like crack cocaine to him. Sexually. He said he wanted to snort her and would sell his belongings even if she charged him $10,000 to sleep with her. He continues to share how many people he's been sleeping with since the breakup, and says he also spends a lot of his mornings watching porn in bed. If the sex talk wasn't enough to set off his fans, his comments about race would. He said, "I'm just very. And if you can't handle my very, then I'm a douchebag. That's why black people love me." He went on to say that he gets a hood pass and refers to them as the N-word. Immediately after his interview was published, it caused tons of controversy where he was called an asshat and became a trending topic, but not for the reasons that you really want to be trending. Sliding into number 7 is Tom Cruise. We've seen him lose his temper on a few different occasions, so it's not much of a surprise that he's wound up on this list. He made comments that people didn't appreciate, like the time he criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants. She took them for postpartum depression, but since Tom is a Scientologist, he doesn't believe in those kinds of drugs or therapy. So, during an interview back in June 2005 with NBC's Today Show, the reporter Matt Lauer asked him about his criticism, and he didn't like that it was brought up. The actor ended up calling him a glib and told him he doesn't know what he's talking about. In anger, he said, "You don't know the history of psychiatry." I do. He continued to discuss his Scientology beliefs, which causes enough controversy in itself, and said that because Lauer admitted to using psychiatric drugs in the past, he was actually advocating the use of Ritalin and that it's wrong.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry.
His anger, defensive mechanism, and attitude isn't a shock really, but it just still isn't necessary. At number 6 is Joan Rivers. The woman is known to be a harsh critic when it comes to her time on Fashion Police, but is it harsh if it's true? That is the real debate. Some people appreciate her brutal honesty, while others think that it's just straight up rude, which is the main reason why she went into a rage and walked out in the middle of a CNN interview back in 2014. She was doing a live stream interview with CNN host Frederica Whitfield, who started off by joking around saying that her show Fashion Police was mean, and that was enough to trigger Rivers. Everything from that moment on just escalated very quickly. CNN asked her why she fights to end animal cruelty while she still wears fur, and her response was, "Are you wearing leather shoes? Then shut up."
The cover of your book, you're wearing a fur, and you knew that there would probably be animal rights activists.
You know, this whole interview is becoming a defensive interview.
No!
Are you wearing leather shoes?
Yeah,
shut up.
She then continued to go on a rant saying that the interview is turning into a defensive one, and she insults the lady one last time before storming off set. She said, "You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry," and rips off her earpiece before leaving.
And you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
Are we serious?
However, she didn't turn off her microphone, and after leaving the set, they recorded her calling the host the C word. Her exit strategy wasn't thought out very well. Halfway through the list, at number 5 is Jerry Seinfeld. Fans were shook when the hit TV series Seinfeld came to an end, and everyone was pointing the finger at Jerry, wondering what exactly happened. He didn't like that very much, and he lost his cool on Larry King back in 2007 when he asked him about it during an interview. He was live on CNN for the interview and was actually there to promote his new project, B-Movie. Larry ends up asking him if he canceled the show or if the network canceled him. A pretty standard question to ask since the show was around for so many years and was coming to an end all of a sudden. But rather than simply answering him, he got extremely offended and started to become a bit ignorant. He made it clear that he had 75 million viewers and that it was his choice to quit. Larry tries to move on from the question when he sees his response, but Jerry continues to interrupt him, even to a point where he can't cut to a commercial break when he is supposed to.
75 million viewers last episode.
What, you don't take it so bad.
Well, that's the big difference between being canceled and being number one.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He even says the famous line, "Do you know who I am?"
Do you know who I am?
Jewish guy, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Okay.
Fans responded to the interview saying that he overreacted and could have simply just answered the question gracefully. There was no point to prove. We clearly all know that your show was a success. Alright you guys, at number 4 we have Mel Gibson. Are you shocked? No, didn't think so. He's known for having anger issues, and the majority of them it has been well documented through audio recordings or videos, so it's not like I'm just assuming all of this. One of his interviews went viral back in 2010 when we got to see a piece of his angry side come out. He was doing a live stream interview with WGN News, and the reporter Dean Richards asked him about some incidents from his past, like his alcohol use and bad temper. 4 years prior to the interview, he was arrested and got a DUI, so he asked if he feels the public would receive him differently now. Mel was outraged by the question, which he showed by the expression on his face. He responded by saying, "That's almost 4 years ago, dude. I mean, I've moved on. I guess you haven't." He ends up continuing and says, "Let's move on, dude, come on." He doesn't say goodbye or anything as Dean ends the interview. He just gives a thumbs up and sips his coffee. And right after the interview ends, he calls Dean an not knowing that the video was still recording.
It's good to see you back in the saddle and doing what you do best. Thanks a lot for joining us, Mel. Take care.
Bye-bye.
In spot number 3 is Tracy Morgan. It's hard to forget about the interview he did in 2007 when he was clearly drunk on camera.
Ladies, my Mercedes. I'm the ooh child.
The reporter, Robert Holguin, seemed super uncomfortable and out of his element when dealing with him throughout the interview on ABC7. But he remained professional and was a good sport about it, laughing and making jokes with Tracy, who was completely out of control. Morgan took his shirt off, which ultimately ripped his microphone off, and began slapping his belly, calling it a loaf of bread, and said it was his mating call. Robert tried hard to keep the interview going and talking about his upcoming show, but Tracy was in his own little world. After the interview cut to commercial, you could hear Robert saying, "I am going to get fired." At number 2 on our list is Roseanne Barr. She had an incredibly successful career, but it crumbled after she tweeted out some racist comments. She lost everything, including her ABC sitcom called Roseanne. She tweeted out a comment where she compared Barack Obama's advisor, Valerie Jarrett, to a character from Planet of the Apes and linked her to a group called Muslim Brotherhood. During an interview with Inside, she spoke about the incident with a cigarette in hand and lost all control of her emotions and began to scream. Like literally scream. She went off the rails yelling, "I thought the was white." She continues to scream out different curse words and in between takes a puff from her cigarette, maybe in hopes to try and calm down, which clearly didn't work.
I thought the was white! Damn it!
This is her back? Seriously?
Throughout the interview, she looks totally out of it and at time asks the producer, "Are you filming?" The producer can't help but laugh at her erratic behavior and just keeps repeating himself, telling her that she's already explained this to them 300 times, but she just keeps going on about it. And not gracefully. Taking our number 1 spot is Michael Jackson. Over 10 years ago, he was charged on different allegations of child sexual abuse that were filed against him. A documentary about his life, including these charges, was released and showed an interview where he made inappropriate comments that left people stunned. When speaking about his own children, he admitted during an interview that he allowed their friends to come over and sleep in his bed with him. Ain't nothing normal about that. He explained that he doesn't see any problem with it because, I quote, "It's all very charming." The interviewer was baffled that he would be saying these things considering the allegations that were against him, but Michael stood firm on his beliefs and referred to the young children as his friends. He simply didn't see anything wrong with a grown man being friends with young children. After hearing these things come out of the singer's mouth himself, his reputation was never really the same after that.